So in 30 more days, I will end my 35-year career of teaching. So people have been asking me questions about my teaching career all year long. And it's just starting to sink in. Things are going to change. For over half my life, I've been in front of students. So I was thinking about my teaching career and all the things I've done and what I really didn't know when I graduated from college. See, I was hired as a biology teacher. Well, in my first year as a biology teacher, I taught many different subjects because I was only hired half-time. The other half of the day, I was the permanent substitute. I remember one time I did a history class for this veteran teacher, and he had his instructions there, and it said, grade the papers from yesterday. Okay. So I graded his papers from yesterday. It was amazing. Every student got 100. And then back then, this is back in 1987, we weren't chiseling grades in grade books in stone yet, but I put him in his paper grade book in ink. He wasn't real pleased with me. I was very pleased with him, you could tell. Then I got promoted for the half day, and I did internal suspension room, which I actually kind of enjoyed. I know there was one student who was literally there every day, Doug. We became friends on first name basis. But my favorite other duty assigned occurred a couple years later. It's like 2 weeks before school starts. And I'm on some beach on some lake in northwestern Pennsylvania. My phone rings. It's one of my bosses. And I answer when my boss calls, if I know it rings. He asked me if I'd be interested in coaching girls' tennis. I never played tennis. I didn't do any sports that involved balls. Never mind, everything I'm going to say is not appropriate. I was a wrestler, and that was it. And the only reason I was a wrestler is because I couldn't do anything else. You know, that's where all the uncoordinated kids end up, is on a wrestling mat. So I'm like, I told him, I said, I never played tennis. He goes, it doesn't matter. They don't have a coach. I knew when the season started. It started the next day. I'm like, when's our practice start? It starts the next day, but you can come down on Wednesday. Well, my vacation wasn't done yet, but I said, okay. So I show up Wednesday for practice, and he told me, he said, this is a great group of athletes. All you need to do is make sure they get on the bus and off the bus. Okay, I can handle that. So I figured, well, I'll try and coach them a little bit. Tennis involves some running, so we did a lot of running. We did suicide sprints, left, right, left, right. And then I got creative. I would make them do suicide sprints till they're almost dead, and then they had to serve the tennis ball within a couple seconds, and it had to be a good serve, too. So my crew was in shape. Did I help them with their tennis? Nope. I didn't know a darn thing about tennis. So we start playing matches, and we start winning. I'm like, what's this? And we keep winning. Then we have a match coming up against York Suburban, which is one of the tennis powerhouses here in York County. I was at Dover. Dover's not a tennis powerhouse. There's no country club or anything like that. None of my players had private lessons except for my number one player and my number two player. So we're playing Suburban, and it's close. And we're into the doubles, and it's tie. And we need to win the number one doubles. And this match is going on and on and on. It gets dark. So play is postponed till the next day. We go back the next day, and it's down to game point. And we had practiced hitting targets with the tennis ball, lobbing it back or returning it and hitting targets. And in tennis, I learned that if you hit your opponent with the ball, it's an automatic point. We needed one more point. My number one player hit the number one player with the ball. We beat York Suburban, which was amazing. The only team that beat us that year was Dowstown. We set a school record for most wins. I had 2 players go to districts. My doubles team went to districts. I don't know anything about tennis. But what I did learn is that I'd focused so much on things that weren't important, like knowing the Krebs cycle. My kids don't know it after I teach it. All this content-related stuff, 90% of it is about building relationships, which I learned. I built relationships with those girls. It was the best group of athletes as a team I'd ever coached. One of them sent me a message recently. They were just so happy that they had a coach, and all they wanted to do was make me happy. They did.